The full focus of the Philadelphia Phillies organization continues to be centered around how to maximize the talent of the same core that continue to run back. And with the team having arrived at spring training, we're beginning to get some interesting quotes fly out there on what exactly this plan is. I'm going to break down the recent thoughts by Kevin Long, the Phillies hitting coach, where I thought he had some interesting things to say about the approach for this season, as well as Bryce Harper himself chiming out on why he may not be as gung-ho for this game plan as some people have been pushing. So to dive right into it, before we get started, I do want to remind you guys to make sure you are smashing that subscribe button. It is Philly season. Baseball is here, and we are just getting started right here on Phillies Digest. So have plenty of big plans in the works. We're going to be doing live watch-alongs for games, going to be doing live streams with my guy Luke Arcani, as well as videos popping out just about every single day. So we want each and every one of you along for the ride. Make sure you're clicking that subscribe button if you have not just yet. Now, to talk into the topic that I want to get into today, first I want to highlight a couple quotes from Kevin Long. I always think it's a little bit interesting, just kind of the role of some of these positional coaches. Kevin Long obviously being the hitting coach for this Phillies team, and a guy who's received a great deal of credit for the way that he has brought guys along, developed different areas of their game, improved their plate approach. He is a guy that I would say gets more credit than you just about ever hear for a hitting coach in particular there. Now, he was interviewed by Matt Gelb with The Athletic, and to dive into exactly what was said, I do want to start out with this quote here from Kevin Long that says, quote, "But for us to get over to the top, we got a little bit better, individually and collectively as a coaching staff. Maybe it's pressing guys a little bit more and really getting some buy-in in some areas where we can do a better job," hitting coach Kevin Long said in an interview with Matt Gelb of The Athletic. A lot of this is going to fall on Long's shoulders. He's the one working with the hitters on a daily basis, and with a clear directive from Dombrowski and manager Rob Thomson about how this lineup needs to approach things moving forward, it's on him to make sure that happens. To continue on with this article here, Kevin Long says, quote, "We need to have better at-bats. We need to make better decisions, and when you make better decisions, you're probably seeing the ball a little bit deeper." I think that's what Rob alluded to. If we're seeing the ball deep, we're probably going to use the other field, Long added. That brings up the old adage, can an old dog be taught new tricks? The Phillies have a lineup loaded with stars, and they have all gotten to this point and become the caliber of players by doing things the way they've always have. And for many of them, that's having a free-swinging mindset at the plate. But it's not working for Philadelphia when it matters most, evident by their domination of opposing staffs in the regular season, but their mind-numbing cold streaks in the playoffs the past 2 years where they have gotten getting themselves out by swinging at bad pitches. So a lot to digest here, and this next quote is what I really want to harp on, which perked my ears up here. But for Kevin Long as a whole, I do kind of think that is the mindset to me, that these guys have gotten here for a reason. They're all Major League Baseball players who have found their pathway there one way or another by playing the way they kind of always have. And sure, there's adjustments. Sure, there's little adaptations that can be made depending on the pitcher, the plate approach, the streak, the certain pitches that you hit better than others. There are adjustments that you can make, don't get me wrong. But I do think some of the credit that Kevin Long has gotten is a little bit strong in my own personal opinion here. Now, what perked my ears up here for this particular quote, it was this specific line that he had that did kind of surprise me. And to continue on in the article, it writes, "Still, getting to the point where habits are broken and new ones are created is the difficult part. That's why Long believes there are going to be some tough conversations that will be had over the course of the season, and it might not be the cuddly relationship the players have had with the coaching staff the past few years." Quote, "Dustin, Rafael Pena, and I have talked about just being a little bit more forceful. Listen, if we piss them off, at times it's going to be like that. There might be some friction, but that if it's for the betterment of the team and for us to get where we need to be, then we need to do it," Kevin Long stated. And I thought this was interesting. In general here, when you hear friction as it pertains to any sort of sports team, generally not a good thing. It is interesting to me that it does seem there's kind of a mindset shift in the way they want to go about things. Now, there is no doubt in the world that the biggest problem with this Phillies team has been plate approach. That you have a guy like Nick Castellanos who's sort of the clear-cut example, and I don't want to be too hard on Castellanos, who was probably their best hitter in the playoffs last year. I would say absolutely their best hitter in the playoffs last year. And during the regular season, still had 23 home runs, 86 RBIs. In his 606 at-bats, had 154 hits there. And while he still did log 139 strikeouts, I was overall really happy with the version of Nick Castellanos that was here last year. And we do have him for this season and one more on the contract after that. And even while we did hear some trade rumors, it does feel like Castellanos is a part of the core here. That to me, he's sort of a made man on this Phillies team. I rock with Cassie. We know we're going to have to live with the ups and downs, and boy, is it maddening when he goes through those cold stretches. But for me, that just makes it all the more important to protect him in the lineup in the proper way and surround him with guys that are willing to work counts. Castellanos, to me, is that tier of talent that you live with it. Now, there's other guys where that should not be the case. Guys like Alec Boehm to me, or Bryson Stott. There has to be adjustments made in which these are more complete performances of the plate every single time they step up there. If Johan Rojas is stepping up to the plate and swinging at the first pitch, we have some serious issues. And it did feel like there were stretches of that last year for this entire lineup as a whole. And it was put on full display in the playoffs where they were out in front of stuff, hacking at first pitches, and outside of Castellanos, really, who was excellent in putting bat on ball for a lot of these, it was some really frustrating at-bats from this Phillies team, and that is where Kevin Long comes back to the forefront. But what was interesting to me there was seemingly this desire to ruffle some feathers, to stir things up. And there is this more, I guess, open conversation, this open dialogue about what this lineup should be. For years, people have protested the Kyle Schwarber batting leadoff. Now, granted, I'm not going to sit here and rewrite history on my own opinions here. I've been in favor of it, that I like having Schwarber as the top leadoff. I'm a subscriber to the ideology that Rob Thomson pushes of there's no better way to start a game than being up 1-0. I'm with you there. I see that. We know how the Schwarbombs feel when it is that first at-bat at the game. There is something special about it, and I'm not as gung-ho that this needs to change. But what did surprise me is there is a guy that does seem pretty gung-ho on it not being him slid to the top of the lineup, and that being Bryce Harper here. And the quote that specifically came out here, this was kind of talked about the moving parts in the lineups, and it writes, that could result in Schwarber hitting cleanup when Harper bats second. Harper said, quote, I haven't been talked to yet. Obviously, I'm a 3-hole hitter, or I have been, but whenever they tell me to hit 2 or 4, I've done that in the past. I want to win, so I don't care what that takes. If you're wondering, Thomson already said Harper won't lead off. I'll take the extra at-bats, but I don't want to hit leadoff, Harper said. And why this is interesting to me is it does feel like there's two schools of thoughts for the leadoff conversation, right? In one hand, there is the traditional leadoff approach that you want guys that are going to get on base, that can have quick legs, can steal bases if need be, are threats to score terrors on the baseline. A guy like Johan Rojas, while he's not quite there from an average, is a dude that you look at as the archetype of a leadoff hitter if he fully develops. That when he's on the base path, you feel him. I think he's the only guy on this Phillies team. I know there's other guys that can steal bases, Trey Turner being at the top of the list there as well, but there's a pressure that is brought on by having Johan Rojas in the base path that, to me, that's what connects with a leadoff hitter. Then there's the other kind of thought process here, which is just get your best player to the plate as many times as possible. Shohei Ohtani, I think, is the clear-cut example of this for the Dodgers, who has been hitting off there. Obviously, Kyle Schwarber, sort of from the same school of thought here, but I would say Bryce Harper would be a clear example if you're going to do that from the Phillies angle. And to dive into the numbers as a whole here, I got to say, I was kind of shocked by how much the contrast is. And what I mean by this, shout out to Ryan M. Spadar here, an awesome follow on Twitter, and he tweets, the best player on every single team should bat leadoff in every single game. In 2024, across the MLB, leadoff hitters had 10,711 plate appearances with the potential to either tie the game or take the lead. 957 more than 3-hole hitters. This includes additional opportunities in high leverage scenarios. Plate appearances with the ability to tie the game or take the lead across the MLB in 2024, during the entire game. Batting first, once again, that's 10,711 versus batting third, that is 9,754. Now, after the first inning, which is when the moments matter their most here, batting first, you get 6,130 of those, or did last season. Batting third, 5,426. And those are some pretty telling statistics there. I do see that sort of logic there. Now, granted, I would say priority number one is get guys where they're comfortable, and there should be a little bit of dialogue, a little bit of conversation, but it does feel like kind of a pretty strong stance from Bryce Harper, particularly as I think he's a pretty key part of this conversation. And the other part to keep in mind here is when you are staggering the righties and lefties in the lineup. That is what makes things a little bit more difficult. You probably can't bat Schwarber and Harper back-to-back. I would give it a little bit more thought than I think Rob Thomson will. Personally, I'm more of a subscriber to get the best hitters and don't worry too much about the splits. Does that leave you a little vulnerable that they can obviously bring a lefty out of the pen at the high moments of the games? For sure. That is the risk you run there. There's no doubt about it. There are a lot of moving parts to this entire conversation. But I will say my main takeaway from this video here, one I want to point out the most here, was this official quote from Kevin Long that is saying regarding the outlook for this, quote, Dustin, Rafael Pena, and I have talked about just being a little bit more forceful. Listen, if we piss them off, at times it's going to be that. there might be some friction, but if it's for the betterment of the team and for us to get where we need to be, then we need to do it. So it does feel like there's a mindset shift within this Phillies team, and I think the lineup shift is going to be sure to follow that. So it will be interesting to see what Rob Thomson ultimately lands on for night one here. I do wonder. I think at this point, if you made me lock in a prediction, it's that Kyle Schwarber is still sitting there at leadoff when things are said and done. But who knows? I could be surprised. It certainly does not sound like it will be Bryce Harper. But for you guys tuning into this video here, do want to hear your comments below. Drop your ideal, I guess, lineup card. You can go 1 through 9 if you want to go all the way. Who would you bat lead off if you're Rob Thomson in the driver's seat right now? Drop those thoughts below. As always, appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning into this video here. If you have not already, make sure you're smashing that subscribe button. Once again, just 73.8% of you guys watching these videos have not subscribed to the channel just yet. So let's get these numbers growing. We got big plans for Phillies Digest this season and want each and every one of you a part of it. So make sure you're smashing that subscribe button, dropping a like on this video here, dropping your comments below, and I'll be back talking with you next time. Peace.